Well, I think the real issue is about radical Islamist extremism, and he doesn't have the balls to call it out for what it is, rather than suggest that people that are challenged in our country about what's happening, he's insulated from these things. He lives in a very rarefied world where his money and privilege has enabled him to live behind a gated environment, not have to worry about NHS appointments, not have to worry about people being attacked in the streets by immigrants that shouldn't be here in the first place.
Hi guys, welcome to the channel. Thanks for joining us again, and thanks for subscribing if you've subscribed recently, much appreciated. I had to react to this recent video by Gary Neville. What a prick. He's gone on a rant about somebody putting a flag up on one of his building sites, and he's ripped it down like he's some big hero. You know, at the moment we're under a lot of pressure. Indigenous white people in this country are under a lot of pressure. You know, things are happening that feel like they're out of our control, you know, whether it be good or bad. And, you know, the government's not really helping. The government's making things worse. And Gary Neville comes out and doesn't understand really what normal people have to deal with on a daily basis. He lives in a cocoon. He's a rich man. He's obviously lives in a fancy gated house, you know, and doesn't actually live in the real world. He's lost touch with it, so he doesn't know what's going on. And to come out and blame the attack on a synagogue on the fact on angry white men is a bit of a stretch, to say the least, Gary, isn't it? You know. And so I just wanted to show this video because it was Simon Jordan, who is no shrinking violet and says what he thinks. And whatever you think about Simon Jordan, he's definitely a patriot. He loves this country, and I always think he's got a really strong opinion. And it's, you know, and I feel like he's in touch. He's one of those people you feel like is pretty much in touch with the normal Joe public on many things. I just wanted to play his response to what Gary had said, and I think it's quite interesting. So let's get into it.
We'll see the Union Jack, no doubt, the St George's flag being waved about here, there and everywhere. Simon, can the flag be unifying in football, but in other areas of society divisive?
I think it's astonishing, in the wake of an Islamist terror attack, that he decides to have a go at middle-aged white men. Maybe the angry middle-aged white men are the ones that worked on minimum wage inside his hotel. I don't know. I think he's a champagne socialist and a coward. I think it's a dreadful thing to have said.
How is he a coward?
Well, I think the real issue is about radical Islamist extremism, and he doesn't have the balls to call it out for what it is, rather than suggest that people that are challenged in our country about what's happening, he's insulated from these things. He lives in a very rarefied world where his money and privilege has enabled him to live behind a gated environment, not have to worry about NHS appointments, not have to worry about people being attacked in the streets by immigrants that shouldn't be here in the first place. He doesn't have to worry about these things, and so he has the ability to be able to sit there and observe in such a way that insulates himself from it. And I think it's an appalling stance to have taken. He's entitled to his view. He's entitled to a view. We are quite happy to wave every other flag in this country, whether it's Palestinian flags, Ukraine flags, or any other flag that we feel that we're able to wave. But when you're talking about people in this country that have legitimate concerns and want to have a legitimate value set and push back against what they're having forced upon them, for Gary Neville to say what he's just said is the exact embodiment of what I said, which is a champagne socialist, which is insulated from the real world, and a coward, because the real issue is about some of the extremism that's going on in this country.
At this precise time in which we are living, do you think certain football fans will think twice about waving a flag?
Well, it depends. I mean, if you listen to ghastly ex-Labour MPs like Emily Thornberry, anyone that waves the flag St George's is a thug and a Luddite. You know, it depends who you want to listen to. I think you should be proud of your country. I think you should be proud of your country's flag. It only seems to be this country that seems to think that because there were a few people, a minority of people that want to adopt it and utilise it for the potentially the wrong reasons, that somehow it represents, it's like suggesting that every single time you have an issue with something in this country, you push back against the narrative of undocumented young males coming across into our country, you're a racist. There's nothing racist about that. It's having a concern and being able to voice it, and the politicians and people of influence in this country are not and have not been listening.
So there you go. It's It's an interesting viewpoint, and it's shared by a lot of people at the moment because it never seems to end. I don't think it's a bad thing to be able to say that we need to do something about the illegal immigration in this country. It's just gone too far. It really has. And it's putting a lot of pressure on communities. And you get some idiot like Gary Neville comes along, who lives in a totally different world to everybody else, to normal people, you and me. And, you know, he's got this similar sort of opinions to Lineker, and he just thinks he's better than everybody else. And he sort of thinks he's the guy who's, you know, the pulse of the nation, and he's thinking for the nation. And like he's embarrassed about us all, you know, because we've put some flags up. It's all we've got. We can't do anything else. It's the only thing we got. We can't protest without being arrested. We can't put anything on social media without being arrested. So the most aggressive thing we could do was put a flag up somewhere. People put flags up. That's all it was. Just a show of patriotism, you know, just to bring us together a little bit. All the pubs are closing, so nobody can meet anywhere, you know, and talk about the issues of the day and what's going on. And everybody's just so pissed off with Labour and this horrible Prime Minister. And how he can make the stretch of saying, blaming this Islamic extreme, blaming us, blaming middle-aged white men for this Islamic attack, Islamist attack on a synagogue because of Jew hate, is just beyond me. It's just beyond me. It's a disgrace. And Simon Jordan called him out. And thank God. Well done, Simon. Thank you for calling him out. We've currently got 40,000 Islamists, 40,000 jihadis on the MI5 watch list. We've got 3,000 that have to be watched 24/7, 365 days a year at a massive cost to the country because they're so dangerous. You know? We've got hardly any tiny proportion of what they call far-right people being watched. Whatever you hear on BBC, it's Islamists, jihadis that are being watched. And yet we get idiots like Gary Neville thinking everything's rosy, you know, because he lives in his fancy big house with his fancy car and his millions of pounds from Sky. And the people that pay his wages at Sky are those angry white men that are paying his wages at Sky. And he can't even see that. It's unbelievable. Anyway, it's got me really angry as that. But I thought it was a good response from Simon Jordan. And so there you go. I will leave you there. Thank you for joining us. If you can subscribe and like the video, that'd be great. And I will see you on the next one.